There's a lie your brain has been whispering to you for years. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It hides behind logic and reason, wearing the voice of safety. It says, "You're not ready yet." And the tragedy is, you believed it. You believed it when you stayed silent in rooms where you should have spoken. You believed it when you turned down opportunities because you felt unqualified. You believed it when you compared yourself to someone further ahead and said, "Maybe someday." That single lie, "I'm not ready," has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. It sounds responsible, even wise. Your brain tells you it's just being careful. It says, wait until you're confident, wait until you know more, wait until the timing is perfect. But the truth is, your brain doesn't want perfect. It wants predictable. It doesn't crave progress. It craves safety. And safety is the quiet enemy of growth. The human brain evolved to protect you, not to fulfill you. It can't tell the difference between a tiger in the wild and the fear of rejection in a meeting. It reacts the same way, heart racing, hands sweating, mind screaming, "Run!" And so you do. Not from danger, but from destiny. You call it overthinking, but it's really your survival instinct trying to shield you from uncertainty. The problem is, uncertainty is the birthplace of everything beautiful. Love, art, purpose, transformation. The brain's job is to keep you alive. Your job is to use it, not obey it. Because if you let fear run the show, you'll spend your entire life preparing for a moment that never comes. You'll study, plan, rehearse, wait until your dreams expire in drafts and notebooks. Here's the truth your brain doesn't want you to know. Readiness is a myth. No one feels ready before they begin. Confidence doesn't come before the action, it comes from it. Every person you admire once started scared. Every success story began with someone who acted before they felt prepared. So the next time your mind tells you you're not ready, I want you to answer, "Maybe not, but I'm willing." Because willingness is stronger than readiness. It's the bridge between fear and freedom. Your brain is an incredible machine, but it has one primary purpose: to keep you alive, not to make you fulfilled. That means its default state isn't curiosity, it's caution. It doesn't wake up in the morning asking, "How can I help you grow?" It asks, "What might hurt you today?" This is the foundation of almost every hesitation, every fear, every "I'll start tomorrow" you've ever felt. The brain, in its protective brilliance, constantly scans for danger, but it doesn't distinguish between physical threats and emotional ones. To your subconscious, public speaking feels like a tiger attack. Rejection feels like exile from the tribe. Failure feels like death. That's why when you decide to take a risk, start a business, confess your feelings, change careers, your mind begins its panic routine. Your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your thoughts spiral. And then comes the voice, that soft, reasonable voice that says, "Maybe this isn't the right time," or "Let's wait until we're more prepared." It feels wise, rational, like a friend giving you advice, but it's not wisdom, it's fear in disguise. The brain's obsession with safety masquerades as intelligence. Here's what's really happening. Your brain is wired to conserve energy. Every new behavior, every challenge, every risk requires effort, and effort is uncertain. Uncertainty burns glucose, demands focus, increases heart rate. So your brain tries to convince you to stay where things are predictable, even if predictable means miserable. That's why people stay in toxic relationships, dead-end jobs, or repetitive habits. The known pain feels safer than unknown change. Think about it. How many times have you felt a deep urge to do something, a new idea, a passion project, a big step, and within seconds your mind begins building walls? What if I fail? What will people think? I'm not talented enough. That's not logic, it's self-preservation. Your brain would rather keep you in a loop of worry than risk the unknown, because worry gives the illusion of control. It makes you feel like you're doing something when, in truth, you're doing nothing but reinforcing paralysis. But here's the paradox. The same brain that fears change also craves it. You've felt it before, that spark of excitement when you imagine a new version of yourself, living freely, expressing fully. That's your higher consciousness trying to lead you beyond survival. Yet each time you start to move, your primitive wiring pulls you back. It's like pressing the accelerator and the brake at the same time, exhausting, frustrating, and paralyzing. To break this cycle, you first have to see it clearly. You have to stop personalizing the fear. It's not you who's afraid, it's your programming. It's just your nervous system running an ancient script that hasn't been updated for the modern world. The script says if you don't know what's coming, assume it's danger. So your brain responds to emails, meetings, or Instagram posts with the same stress chemistry meant for predators in the wild. And we wonder why burnout feels like the new normal. The truth is, you can't delete fear. You can only retrain your relationship with it. The goal isn't to eliminate the voice that says you're not ready. It's to learn to move anyway, to act while the doubt still whispers. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's forward motion despite it. Every time you take an action that scares you, your brain learns something new. I didn't die. That simple realization begins to rewire the neural circuitry of fear. Over time, the brain's alarms get quieter, its resistance weaker. But the first few times, it's war. The brain will flood you with anxiety, excuses, distractions. It'll tell you to research more, to plan longer, to perfect before you begin. It will offer comfort as a bribe to stop progressing. You'll feel tension in your chest, resistance in your body. That's not a sign you're on the wrong path. It's proof you're on the right one. Growth and fear live on the same street. The danger lies in mistaking the brain's warnings for truth. You see, your mind doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about your survival statistics. Its logic is simple. You survived yesterday doing what you did. So do that again. Anything new, even joy, even love, feels threatening if it hasn't been experienced consistently before. So if you've lived years in scarcity, abundance will feel unsafe. If you've lived years in sadness, happiness will feel unfamiliar. The brain clings to what it knows. The beginning of change, then, is to notice the lie as it appears. When that familiar thought arises, you're not ready, you'll embarrass yourself, you'll fail. Pause and ask, is this a fact or a fear? 99% of the time, it's fear, a phantom dressed in logic. And when you call it by name, its power shrinks. Because awareness is the one thing the subconscious can't manipulate. Your brain's obsession with safety will always exist, but it doesn't have to rule your life. You can learn to thank it for trying to protect you, and then gently move forward anyway. Because every time you do, you teach it a new truth, that growth is not danger, that risk is not death, that uncertainty can coexist with joy. And slowly, your brain begins to serve your purpose instead of suffocating it. That's when the old lie starts to crumble. Not because it disappears, but because you stop believing it. Self-doubt feels like an enemy, but in truth, it's a shield. A strange, subtle form of protection your mind builds to keep you from disappointment. You think doubt means weakness, but often it's the mind's way of saying, let's stay safe. Let's not risk being hurt again. It sounds negative, but in a twisted way, it's trying to help you. The problem is that what begins as protection soon becomes a prison. You stop trying not because you can't succeed, but because your brain has convinced you that failure would destroy you. You see, self-doubt thrives in the gap between who you are and who you think you should be. The mind builds that gap through comparison. Watching, scrolling, measuring yourself against others who seem more talented, more confident, more ahead. You tell yourself they have something you don't, forgetting that they also began uncertain, insecure, unready. But the mind doesn't show you their beginnings. It only highlights their result. And so you shrink, quietly, pretending it's humility, when it's actually fear in a disguise so elegant you almost admire it. The comfort of self-doubt is that it gives you an excuse not to act. It says, I'm not lazy, I'm just not ready. It whispers, I'm not avoiding my dreams, I'm just being realistic. That's how the brain sedates you with rationality. It doesn't push you off cliffs of despair, it rocks you gently to sleep with logic. And when years pass and you look back and wonder why you never started, you'll realize it wasn't failure that stopped you. It was overthinking, the endless waiting for a moment of certainty that never came. The truth is, self-doubt feeds on evidence you've collected over time. Every mistake, every rejection, every criticism becomes proof that you shouldn't trust yourself. Your brain builds a courtroom of memory, replaying your lowest moments as exhibits in the case against your potential, and the verdict is always the same. You're not enough. What you don't realize is that your brain is biased. It only collects evidence that supports the lie. Every success, every compliment, every quiet victory gets dismissed as luck. To break free, you have to expose the lie with truth. Not fake positivity, not shouting affirmations in the mirror, but quiet honesty. When your brain says, you've failed before, you answer, yes, and I learned. When it says you're not like them, you respond, I'm not supposed to be. When it whispers you might get rejected, you smile and say, I'll survive. Because confidence isn't built by avoiding doubt, it's built by walking through it. Every time you do something while afraid, the old belief loses power. But here's the paradox. Self-doubt also flatters the ego. It keeps you in a constant loop of self-analysis, making you the center of your own story. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? Notice how every thought begins with I. Doubt makes you self-obsessed, but in a way that looks like self-awareness. You confuse reflection with paralysis. You start believing that endless analysis is growth, when in reality it's avoidance dressed as wisdom. There's a reason your brain prefers doubt over risk. Doubt keeps you in control. It's predictable. You know what it feels like. The fear, the hesitation, the endless internal debates, they're familiar. Risk, on the other hand, means surrender. It means trusting yourself without guarantees. The brain hates that. It's like stepping into darkness with no light except your belief. That's why it keeps you doubting, because as long as you're doubting, you're not moving. The cure for self-doubt isn't more certainty, it's self-compassion. You can't bully your brain into confidence. You can't fight self-doubt by hating the part of you that's afraid. You heal it by showing it, understanding, by saying, I know you're scared, but we're going anyway. That's how you earn your brain's trust again. Because the same mind that built the cage also holds the key. It just needs proof that it's safe to open the door. And that proof only comes through action. Not perfect action, any action. The first step is never the hardest physically. It's hardest psychologically because it violates the brain's illusion of safety. Once you take it, something shifts. You feel fear, but you move anyway. And for a brief moment, your nervous system realizes that maybe, just maybe, the unknown isn't lethal. That realization, repeated over time, becomes confidence. Remember this: doubt never goes away entirely. Even the most accomplished people feel it before every new challenge. The difference is that they've learned to translate it. When they feel doubt, they interpret it as preparation, not paralysis. Their brain still whispers the same old lie. You're not ready, but they've learned to answer, maybe not, but I'm capable. The moment you stop seeing doubt as an enemy and start seeing it as a signal, a sign that you're growing, it loses its grip. Because now when the brain tries to keep you safe, you can smile and say, "Thank you, but I'm okay." And you move forward. Slowly, shakily, but forward. That's how you start dismantling the most dangerous lie of all, the one that says you must feel certain before you act. In truth, certainty is the reward for action, not the prerequisite. Confidence is what happens after you walk through fear, not before. Every time you move despite doubt, your mind records a new truth, that you can be afraid and still powerful. That fear can exist, and so can freedom. And that's when something inside you shifts forever. You stop asking your brain for permission to live. The human brain has a secret addiction that most people never notice: control. It doesn't crave happiness, peace, or even truth as much as it craves the feeling of knowing what will happen next. Predictability makes it feel safe. Uncertainty makes it panic. That's why you rehearse conversations before they happen, replay arguments long after they end, and worry about outcomes you can't change. Your brain isn't trying to torture you, it's trying to build certainty where none exists. From an evolutionary perspective, control meant survival. Our ancestors needed to predict weather, danger, and scarcity to stay alive. The problem is that in the modern world, control rarely saves you, it only stresses you. The brain hasn't evolved fast enough to distinguish between managing real threats and managing imagined ones. So it creates stories. It simulates danger and tries to preempt it. It convinces you that if you can just think long enough, plan deeply enough, anticipate every possibility, you'll stay safe. This illusion of control is comforting but deadly to peace, because no matter how much you prepare, life will still surprise you. The job offer falls through. The relationship ends. The body gets sick. Yet instead of accepting that unpredictability is the natural rhythm of existence, your brain doubles down on control. It makes you overthink, micromanage, obsess. It tries to dominate life instead of dancing with it. The cruel irony is that the more you try to control, the less control you actually have. You exhaust yourself trying to predict chaos, forgetting that chaos is the only constant. The tighter you hold, the more fragile you become. Like clenching water in your fist. The harder you squeeze, the less you retain. The brain, however, doesn't understand surrender. It believes control equals safety, and surrender equals danger. That's why letting go feels terrifying. It feels like dying, but in truth, it's not death, it's freedom. Letting go doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing your attachment to outcomes. It means trusting that you can handle whatever comes, even if it isn't what you planned. That shift from control to trust is one of the most powerful psychological transformations a human can experience, because suddenly the brain's job changes. Instead of trying to predict life, it begins to partner with it. You move from being a prisoner of fear to a participant in flow. Here's how the illusion operates. Your brain uses fear to convince you that control equals safety. You think, if I can just know what will happen, I'll be fine. But you never know, do you? You plan for every scenario, and then reality shows up wearing a different outfit. That's because the future doesn't exist. It's your brain's projection stitched together from memory and imagination. Control is a fantasy made of recycled past and borrowed anxiety. You might notice that the moments you feel most alive are the moments you're not trying to control anything. When you're creating art, dancing, traveling, or laughing so hard you forget yourself. That's because in those moments, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain obsessed with control, relaxes. You drop into what psychologists call flow. Flow is the antidote to the illusion of control. It's where effort meets ease and thinking becomes feeling. But because flow can't be forced, your brain resists it. It says, if I stop controlling, I'll lose everything. What it doesn't realize is that you're already losing the present by constantly chasing the future. The control freak mind keeps you everywhere but here. You're rehearsing life instead of living it. To break this illusion, you must first notice its language. It often sounds like, what if? How will this turn out? I need to make sure. Each of those phrases is fear, wearing the mask of responsibility. When you catch them, pause. Ask yourself, is this something I can actually control right now? If not, release it. Not in theory, literally. Exhale, unclench your jaw, and remind yourself, this is the brain's illusion, not reality. Over time, this becomes a practice, the art of letting go in real time. You'll fail at it often, but each attempt weakens the illusion. Because the moment you stop trying to control, you start to connect. Connection is only possible in the present moment. And the present moment, by definition, cannot be controlled, only experienced. The truth is, your brain doesn't trust life because it doesn't understand it. Life isn't logical. It's paradoxical, unpredictable, sometimes cruel, often miraculous. You can't think your way through it. You can only live your way through it. The mind wants linear progress. Life moves in spirals. The mind wants clarity. Life teaches through confusion. The mind wants guarantees. Life offers growth instead. Here's the secret your brain doesn't want you to know. The opposite of control isn't chaos, it's trust. When you stop trying to manage everything, something extraordinary happens. Your energy returns. Your creativity awakens. You stop bracing for disaster and start flowing with direction. You start seeing opportunities that fear once hid. You realize that life isn't testing you, it's teaching you. The brain will keep trying to regain its throne. It'll whisper, if you let go, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, everything that's real will remain. Only your illusions will fall. And when they do, what's left is peace, not because you control life, but because you finally stop trying to. The most dangerous lie your brain tells you isn't that you're unworthy or that you'll fail. It's that you can't be safe unless you control everything. The moment you stop believing that, you begin to experience life as it truly is, wild, uncertain, alive, and yours. Awareness alone changes nothing. You can understand every fear, analyze every emotion, dissect every thought, and still be trapped by them. Knowledge without action is just elegant paralysis. True transformation begins when awareness moves from intellect to embodiment. When you stop thinking about freedom and start living it, that's where awareness becomes power, not as a concept, but as a state of being. Your brain loves analysis because it feels like progress. It tells you, if I can just understand why I'm like this, I'll finally change. But insight doesn't equal healing. You can understand why the fire burns and still keep your hand in it. Freedom comes when you act differently in the presence of the same thoughts that once controlled you. That's the test of real growth, when awareness meets repetition and becomes a new pattern. Turning awareness into freedom starts with small defiance. When your brain whispers you're not ready, you act anyway. When it says, this might go wrong, you smile and say, then I'll learn. These moments might feel insignificant, but they're revolutionary. Each one teaches your nervous system a new truth. Fear can exist without control. Discomfort can exist without danger. Failure can exist without identity loss. Your brain will resist at first. It will send louder warnings, stronger anxiety, more persuasive lies. That's not a sign of failure, it's proof of rewiring. Old neural pathways fight to survive because they've kept you alive. When you stop feeding them, they panic. The fear you feel when changing your life is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's the brain's way of saying, we've never been here before, and that's exactly why you must keep going. One of the most powerful tools for freedom is self-observation, without judgment. When you catch yourself overthinking, procrastinating, or seeking control, resist the urge to criticize yourself. Instead, say, there's the old pattern. Speak to yourself as you would to a child learning to walk, patient, kind, amused by the falls. Because self-punishment only strengthens the old loop. Compassion breaks it. Your brain's programming is strong, but it's not permanent. Every conscious choice rewires a little. Each time you pause before reacting, you widen the space between thought and behavior. That space is where freedom lives. It's the moment when you realize you are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness hearing it, and awareness is unshakable. It existed before your fears and will remain after they fade. To truly embody freedom, you must also redefine failure. Most people treat failure as the opposite of success, but in truth, it's part of the same road. Every great mind, every innovator, every leader built their strength through failure's friction. The only difference is they didn't interpret failure as proof of inadequacy. They saw it as feedback. Failure stops being pain when you stop labeling it shame. The next time your brain screams, you can't handle this, take a slow breath and remind yourself, I don't need to handle it perfectly. I just need to stay aware. Freedom doesn't mean living without fear. It means no longer obeying it. Fear will still whisper, but awareness allows you to hear it without bowing to it. You become the calm center in the storm instead of the leaf carried by the wind. Another key is presence. You can't be free if your mind is constantly dragging you into the past or projecting you into the future. Freedom lives in the now, the only moment the brain can't control. The present is terrifying to the analytical mind because it has nothing to grasp. No plans, no narratives, no illusions. Just stillness. That's why meditation, breath work, or simple mindful pauses feel so uncomfortable at first. The brain is losing its favorite addiction, noise. But once you sit long enough in silence, something shifts. You begin to feel a different kind of intelligence. Not thought, but knowing. The quiet awareness that doesn't need to control, because it already trusts. You realize that peace isn't something you earn, it's what's left when you stop believing every thought that passes through you. Freedom also demands responsibility. Once you see the patterns clearly, you can no longer blame them. Awareness removes excuses. You can't say, that's just how I am, because now you know that's just how you've been programmed. You can rewrite it. That's both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means no one's coming to save you, and liberating because it means you don't need saving. When awareness deepens, even pain becomes a teacher. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this showing me? The brain sees obstacles. Awareness sees mirrors. Every trigger, every setback, every heartbreak reflects a part of you still believing the lie that you're powerless, that you must control, that you're not enough. Awareness brings those lies into the light, and light dissolves illusion. The moment you stop identifying with your mind, your life changes. You still use it, but it no longer uses you. You still think, but you're not consumed by thought. You still feel fear, but it doesn't dictate your choices. That's the freedom every spiritual and psychological teacher points toward. Not the absence of thought, but mastery of relationship with it. And here's the truth. Your brain will always whisper lies. You're not ready. You'll mess it up. You're too late. It can't help itself. It's built to predict danger. But now you know what's real and what's illusion. You can let the voice speak without obeying it. You can feel fear and move anyway. That's freedom. Not perfect, not fearless, but conscious. So when your brain tells you the same old stories tomorrow, don't fight them. Smile. Recognize the pattern. Say, I see you. And then step forward anyway. Because that step taken consciously, gently, bravely, is the end of illusion and the beginning of your life. One morning you'll wake up and realize something extraordinary. Your mind is still talking, still whispering fears, still predicting the worst, but you no longer feel compelled to obey. The noise is still there, but its volume has lost its authority. You move through your day, and for the first time in your life, you can hear the thought, you're not ready, and simply not believe it. That moment, that quiet disobedience is liberation. It doesn't happen overnight. It comes after hundreds of small choices. The time you spoke, even when your voice shook. The day you started something before you felt prepared. The evening you forgave yourself for not knowing better. Every one of those moments chipped away at the illusion that you needed permission to live. And without even noticing it, you've been building a new kind of strength. The strength of presence. The old you measured courage by outcomes. If I succeed, I'll feel strong. The new you understands that courage is measured by motion. If I act, I'm already strong. You no longer wait for clarity to take a step. You create clarity by stepping. That's what most people never understand. Confidence isn't born in thought, it's forged in movement. Every time you move toward what scares you, your brain rewrites its code. The neurons that once screamed danger begin to whisper possibility. Eventually, the mind stops being the enemy and becomes a tool again. You use it to plan, to imagine, to create, but it no longer rules you. You can feel fear and say, thank you for trying to protect me, and still move forward. That's emotional maturity, not erasing the voice of doubt, but learning to lead it. You become the parent of your own mind, calm and steady, guiding it when it panics. And life responds. Doors you didn't even know existed begin to open. People sense your energy, not the forced confidence of pretending, but the quiet certainty of authenticity. You don't need to prove anything anymore because you're no longer at war with yourself. The power that once went into self-defense now flows into creation. You start attracting opportunities not because you're lucky, but because you finally stopped hiding behind hesitation. The brain will still lie. It will still say, "You're not ready. You'll fail. You're too late." But now you see the pattern so clearly that it almost makes you smile. You recognize the voice like an old nervous friend who means well but doesn't understand who you've become. You listen, think it, and keep walking. That's mastery when fear can visit but never stay. You'll begin to notice the little lies your brain tells every day. If I worry enough, I'll stay safe. If I plan enough, I'll be in control. If I doubt myself, I'll stay humble. But you'll also begin to notice how small those lies feel compared to the truth that now lives in you, the truth that says, "I can handle whatever comes." That single sentence dissolves years of mental noise, because that's all the mind ever needed to hear. Not that everything will be easy, but that you'll be okay either way. Freedom doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means perfection stops being the goal. You begin to live more fully in the mess, to embrace uncertainty, to find beauty in mistakes, to see failure as data, not destiny. You realize that the point of life was never to avoid pain, but to learn how to stay awake through it. Pain stops being punishment. It becomes a teacher. Fear stops being the enemy. It becomes a compass pointing toward what matters most. That's the deepest secret of all. The mind's lies lose power not when they disappear, but when they're met with awareness. You can't stop the tide of thoughts, but you can stop building houses in their waves. You can watch the current pass without trying to fight it. That's peace, not silence, but non-resistance. At some point, you'll stand in front of a mirror and see the reflection differently. You'll notice the same eyes, the same features, but the energy behind them will have changed. There will be less tension in your shoulders, less urgency in your gaze. You'll realize that for the first time in your life, you're not chasing yourself. You've caught up. The version of you that always seemed almost there finally arrives. And when someone asks you how you did it, you'll tell them the truth, that nothing outside of you changed. The world is still unpredictable. People still disappoint. Plans still fall apart. What changed is your relationship with your own mind. You stopped believing every story it told. You stopped assuming every fear was prophecy. You started treating your thoughts as suggestions, not commands. And that shift changed everything, because the brain will always tell stories. That's its job. But now you get to choose which ones you believe. The old story was survival. Stay small, stay safe, stay certain. The new story is expansion. Risk, grow, create, love. The difference between those two is the difference between existing and living. And if you ever fall back into the old pattern, if you catch yourself hesitating, overthinking, doubting again, you won't spiral like before. You'll smile, take a breath, and remember, you already know the truth. You've proven it to yourself 100 times. You'll whisper, "I'm not falling back. I'm just remembering how far I've come." Then you'll take the next step. Because that's the ultimate lesson your brain never wanted you to learn. That you never needed to be ready. Readiness is a myth. Control is an illusion, and fear is just energy waiting to be transformed. You were never broken. You were just hypnotized by your own thoughts. And now you're awake. So the next time that familiar voice rises and says, "You can't," let it finish the sentence. Then gently, calmly answer back, "Watch me." That's the end of the lie and the beginning of truth. That's the birth of freedom. That's the day your mind becomes your ally, not your cage. And that's the moment you finally start to live, not cautiously, not conditionally, but consciously. Because once you see the lie, you can never go back to sleep.